Time now for business, and I'm joined in the studio by Catherine Bennett. And a new report, I understand, that shines a light on the effect of COVID-19's pandemic on some of the world's most valuable brands. So what is the main takeaway, Catherine?
Well, the second half of 2020 was actually extremely rewarding for some of the world's most valuable brands. The 2021 Most Valuable Global Brands ranking takes a look at how companies across all sectors fared over the last 12 months. And the report shows that the world's most valuable brands have grown by a record 42%. So that takes the total worth of the top 100 brands to $7.1 trillion. Now, that's the same as the GDP of France and Germany combined. Now, we've actually got Graham Staplehurst on the line to talk to us about those results. He's the Global Strategy Director at Kantar BrandZ. Thank you so much for being with us, Graham.
Hi, thank you very much for bringing me on the programme.
Well, I suppose the obvious question to start with is what explains such impressive growth in what was otherwise quite a difficult year for many brands?
Yes, it was indeed. But the growth is coming really from two pressures. You've got consumers who are looking for the safety and security of brands that are known and familiar and trusted. And you've also got investors looking to put their money into businesses that own those brands. And so what we're doing at Kantar BrandZ is to put a value on the asset within the company. And what we're seeing is that brands are a safe bet for consumers and they're a safe bet for investors.
And so looking at names in the top 10 in that ranking, we obviously see quite a few familiar faces, the usual suspects, mostly tech and e-commerce, Alibaba, Facebook, Google, Microsoft. But were there any surprises or major changes in the rankings this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've mentioned already that massive growth, 42% growth. That's 4.5 times what we've seen in previous years. But we're seeing brands coming into the ranking like Zoom and Spotify that we've really relied on during the pandemic. We've seen brands like Tesla that became the world's #1 car company, and they've shot up our ranking, increasing an amazing 275% in value. But we've also seen, brands that are much less familiar to us, particularly ones from China like Pinduoduo and Meituan, really increasing again because they're delivering great service and experience to their customers.
So I see you mentioned there are a lot of US brands in the rankings as well, and also these Chinese brands, these sort of newcomers, if you will, into the rankings. Can you tell us a little bit about how European brands are actually faring?
Well, European brands as a whole tend to be in more traditional sectors like banking and consumer goods that are not so strong at the moment. As you said, it's technology that's really growing brand values across the world. Whether that's actually because you're a tech company like a Zoom or an Intuit or an AMD, or because you're using technology. So even brands like McDonald's are increasingly adopting great technology into their delivery, and that's what's helping them to grow. But Europe still has a lot of strengths, particularly in areas like luxury. So the number 21 brand is Louis Vuitton. And that's topped the luxury charts for some time. And that's just gone from strength to strength. And luxury overall, with other brands like Gucci and Chanel, they're all growing on average at 34%. So really not much behind that global leap of 42%.
Well, that's good news, as you say, for those European brands in France and in Italy in particular. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon, which tops the ranking again as the world's most valuable brand. Now, the company's value grew 64% to $684 billion, and that's equivalent to the GDP of Poland. So the Bezos empire seems to be on this stratospheric rise. And why is that? And do you think that's ever going to stop?
Well, I must admit, last year I thought we must be reaching almost a plateau, but we've seen both Amazon and Apple increase massively in value this year to over $500 billion. what Amazon is doing is getting the four fundamentals of brand building absolutely right. They're delivering a really, really solid experience. Functionally, they're giving people the range and the speed that they're looking for. We continue to see great advertising from Amazon, and everyone now recognizes their little smile. And they are super convenient. One of the newer things that's required now to build a great brand is just that they fit seamlessly into a consumer's life, and that's what Amazon is doing. They just make it easy to keep buying with them.
Absolutely. Now, saying how consumers obviously appreciate an easier life, the pandemic has changed how companies work, but also presumably changed consumer habits as well. Are we seeing any new shifts in consumer habits, in consumers' priorities?
Well, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, e-commerce has been a massive takeoff this year, and even in sectors like older consumers that were previously reluctant to use it, they've tried it, found it works well for them as well, whether that's home delivery or click and collect or any sort of a new channel. That's the big change that we're seeing among consumers. They're just recognizing the role that technology can play in their lives, and whether that's switching to Spotify or to Netflix for media consumption or for real goods and products.
Excellent, great. Well, that's Graham Staplehurst. Thank you very much for speaking to us on that report there.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Well, we can now end up with a roundup of the markets. In cryptocurrency markets today, we're seeing quite a lot of movement. Bitcoin slumped over the weekend and continued to dive this morning after China decided to crack down further on Bitcoin mining in the country. Bitcoin prices are currently down 8.5% to $32,301. Over in Europe, European markets recovering after earlier losses. The FTSE now climbing above the flat line. The CAC 40 up 0.25% and the DAX jumping over 0.5%. In Asia, shares plummeted today, led by Japan's Nikkei, which fell briefly over 4% in morning's trading before paring back some of those losses. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index also fell 1%, while the Kospi dropped 0.8%. The Shanghai Composite, however, is up by 0.1%. That wraps up the business from me.
Thank you, Catherine Bennett. And that's it for this edition. I'll be back after a short break, so do stay with us here on France 24.